In this mini series, I'm going to try to create a website that is going to use WordPress as a backend. So we are going to have our administration area and we will be able to put posts and pages in there, create menus and so on. For the front end, we are going to be using Gatsby.js, which is a blazing fast static site generator. Now, static site generators take some data, even dynamic data, and build it up to create only static web pages. So the way the Gatsby works, it takes some data from your data source. It can be a CMS like Contentful, Drupal, WordPress, etc. Or from Markdown or from some of your other APIs, data from the APIs, YAML files, JSON files, and so on. Then it builds it up using GraphQL, and GraphQL is a query language that queries your REST API and provides you with the data that you need. And then it's going to build that site into just HTML, CSS, and React. And then you can take that site and put it pretty much on any hosting that you need, because this is going to be only a static site. Just HTML, just CSS, and JavaScript, of course, React. Now, of course, for us, we will need a server with a database because our source of data is going to come from WordPress. So before we begin, I just want to make a disclaimer. I know nothing about Gatsby, and also I don't know very much about React because I'm more of a Vue.js guy. So I know a little about React, but I don't know much about it. Also, I don't know much about GraphQL. So these are the main technologies that we are going to be using here, and I know almost nothing about them. But it's a great opportunity to learn. So I will learn something before I record this video. I can show it to you guys, and I can even maybe show you some of the pain points that I run into while making this. So I think it's going to be a pretty interesting series. Now, if you want to learn more about Gatsby, you can just go to YouTube, search for Level Up Tutorials, and Level Up Tutorials has a great series about Gatsby. It has a free series, and on their site you have even a paid series for Gatsby, so please check that out if you want to know more about Gatsby. I don't know if the guy that creates those tutorials created one for WordPress. I know that the free ones, they don't have a WordPress, how you can implement WordPress, but I don't know what you get in the paid tutorials. Also check out YouTube or Google for GraphQL tutorials if you think you need to, but GraphQL is actually pretty easy to understand, so but definitely check some documentation out. And I think that's about it. Also, the guy that creates Level Up Tutorials has a great series about React, so if you want to check that out, please do so. Okay, so that's it. I know nothing about this. I'm going into unknown territory. Of course, I prepared for this episode, so I hope we can get through it. And I'm just going to learn this as I go along with you guys. Okay, so first of all, you need to install a WordPress on your machine. I already have it installed. I'm not going to show you that. There are a million tutorials about that if you don't know how to do it. So I have WordPress installed right here. Here is my API from WordPress. So when you install WordPress right now, you get this out of the box. So you just go to this URL and you will get your API for pages. I didn't install anything else on this WordPress installation. No plugins, nothing. This is just a pure vanilla installation of WordPress, and I don't think we are actually going to be touching it at all. So as you can see, it's on the localhost address, gatsby-vp.localhost. I'm using Valet for that, but you can of course use either MAMP, WAMP, XAMPP, whatever you want. But I would suggest you use Laravel Valet because it's very easy to set up your development environment that way. Okay, so let's get started for real this time and click on Get Started link. Of course, you would need Node.js installed on your machine, but I hope you probably have it, because if you are doing anything on the web, you should have Node.js installed. And then with Node.js, you would get npm, and then with npm install global Gatsby CLI, you will get the Gatsby command line tool. I already have it installed, so I'm not going to do that. But instead of that, I'm going to go to the Gatsby-vp directory. So this is where my WordPress lives. So if I do ls, you can see all wp admin, wp includes, and so on. So this is just the WordPress site. And in that WordPress site, I'm going to create a new Gatsby site so that we have everything in one folder. And to do that, let's just see. So you just do, once you installed this, you just do Gatsby new Gatsby site. So WP Gatsby. So this is going to be the directory for our Gatsby. So this is where the Gatsby is going to live. So press enter and just wait for everything to finish. Okay, now that we have this installed, we should be able to run our Gatsby site. So just to see if it works. So it says right here, you should run Gatsby develop, and it will start hot reloading on localhost 8000. Try the editing JavaScript pages, src pages, and so on. When you want to build it, so you just use Gatsby build, and to start a local HTML server for testing, you can use Gatsby serve. But we will not be needing that. We will just use this Gatsby develop command. So of course we already got an error. And what does that error say? Can only be run for a Gatsby site. Okay, so I didn't actually go into the Gatsby directory. Okay, so this is the Gatsby directory, and now Gatsby develop. Now, once this is done compiling, you get this URL right here. So localhost 8000. If I go right here to the localhost 8000, we get a Gatsby site. Okay, and once in here, we can go to the src folder, and it even tells us. So right here, you can go to the src pages and try to make some changes and then see what happens. So let's go to src pages. We have index.js. So what is that? So this is the one that says hi people and so on. Switch, yes. Okay, so as you can see, this is actually a React component. We are importing React right here. Let me make this bigger. We are importing a React. Then we are creating this index page, I would guess, and then you have this HTML that's coming out right here. So if we change this to hello world, you get hello world right here. So okay, this works, this is great. Now since our Gatsby.js site is working, let's see how we can connect it to our WordPress site. So to connect it to your WordPress site, you would need to use this plugin called Gatsby Source WordPress. It's on this URL. Now, the problem with this documentation right here is, even if you go to example site source code, you go right here, you got this important note right here, and it says this example site won't keep working. If you switch the WordPress site to one of yours, it's meant as a learning source, and so on. So this was the problem when I first tried to do this, because I followed these instructions to the letter, and of course my site didn't work. So we are going to create a little bit a simplified version of this, so that we only get posts, pages, and we are not going to use ACF fields for now. Okay, so now you have this demo right here, you have the example site source code, you have the features. So the features are actually great. So this plugin supports ACF, so advanced custom fields. A plugin, it also supports WPML, I think it is. So that's the plugin for translating the WordPress, so it works with that. And when you have those two plugins, which are very powerful, I think you don't need much else. Everything else you can probably create on your own. If we are dealing with some simple site, if that site is not going to be so simple, then maybe don't use WordPress or Gatsby, maybe use something more powerful for that. Okay, so now, first of all, of course, we have to install it. So npm install, save, Gatsby source, and so on. Now, once this is finished, we continue following this code or these examples. Now you need to first define or say to Gatsby, okay, I want to use this plugin. And to do that, you would use this code right here. Now this code is riddled with the comments, so it doesn't look very nice, but I urge you to definitely go through them and see what everything of this does. But for now, I'm just going to copy this from the working site that I have. So we need to go into Gatsby config.js file. Gatsby config.js is right here. So as you can see, it has the site metadata of title, Gatsby default starter. We are going to change that to be something like, actually, let me just paste this in, and then we'll go through that code. So this stays the way it is, and now we are just going to paste this in. So what this says that the title is default Gatsby starter, so we are going to call it WordPress Gatsby. The subtitle is data fetched from a site hosted on WordPress.com, so we are not doing that. We are going to call it fetch data from local WP install. Okay, so this is our site's metadata. Now we have to define the plugin. So you get this plugin out of the box with React, this Gatsby plugin React helmet. So I guess you need it. And now you have to default resolve your Gatsby source WordPress plugin, and then you have some options. So this is mostly the same thing like right here, except it is full of comments, and we are also not using some of these properties right here. So first of all, the base URL for our site, I set it to WP Gatsby.localhost, but for us it's actually Gatsby WP localhost. So I'm just going to copy that and put it right here without the HTTP. The protocol is going to be HTTP. Of course, you can host your backend on WordPress.com, so you can use that, as you can see right here in the documentation. Where is it? Where is it? It's here. So hosting WP.com true. If you set it to true, then it's going to try to contact your website on WordPress.com. But of course, we are not using that. So this is set to false. Use ACF, so advanced custom fields, is set to true. But in this episode, we are not going to use it. So you can even set this to false. And verbose output is set to true. Because we just want to get more information once the site is compiling. Also, you can use this search and replace content URLs if you need it to replace them. If you are using WordPress.com site, then you would need to add your app client secret, client ID, user, and so on. So this is only if you are using this, if this is set to true, but for us it is set to false. Okay, and now we have this WordPress plugins and some, it's actually just saying what this plugin supports. So as you can see, it supports ACF, ACF Pro, It will even work with flexible content for ACF Pro. It supports WP API menus so that we can create menus on our site. Of course, WPML REST API, so that is for translating your pages. And now we have examples of some GraphQL queries right here, but we are not going to touch on that. We're just going to go to, I think, the end of the page, because we still need one more file to populate it with some data. So that file is going to be this one, Gatsby-node.js. So I'm not going to go too much into it. Let me just see if we even have that file. So Gatsby node.js, and as you can see, it is empty right now. And I'm just going to copy everything from here into that file. Right? So we have something like this. Now I would guess what this actually does. I don't know for sure, you have a lot of comments right here, but I would guess what this does, it queries your API for some data. And also what is very important right here, it says where your templates are for your pages and posts, where your templates are. So as you can see, it is resolving the page in src template page.js, and also it's doing the same thing for posts. So we are going to have two templates for Gatsby. One is going to be post.js for our posts and page.js for our pages. Now, of course, during this series, I will check this out in more detail, because we are probably going to need a few more routes for this. If we want to list all of our posts, for example. So if we want to have a blog list, this won't work for that, because this post.js is only going to open the post that you want to see. It's not going to show you the list of posts. But we will cross that bridge once we get to it, because as of right now, I don't know how to do that, but I will find out for you guys. Okay. So let's save this. We got Gatsby-node.js set up, and now we need to create two new files. Actually, we need to create a new folder for now, directory, and we are going to call it templates. Okay, and in that folder we are going to have two new files. So one is going to be page.js, and the other one is going to be post.js. Okay, so now we have our templates right here, and remember, we need to create it like that because we are resolving it right here. So we are using src templates page.js and src templates post.js. So now we have these two files right here. Okay, that is great. Now we need to tell Gatsby how to use this template. So we need to create the template for our pages. And to do that, I'm just actually going to copy that code inside here. Okay. So I'm just going to copy it, and then we are going to go through it. As you can see, there is not a lot of code. I'm just going to save this and also copy the code that we need for our post.js. So I'm just going to copy it right in here, maybe make it a bit bigger. So we are going to go through all of that. And that's pretty much very similar code to something that you would find, well, I don't see it right here, but I probably copied it then from somewhere else, probably from this example site source code. So you have src, you have not pages but templates, and as you will see, this code for the page is much a bit more complicated than the one we are using, but that doesn't matter. So we are going to use this code that I just pasted in, And actually what I want to do now is I just want to see if this works. So I'm just going to save this, go right here and start Gatsby again. Because as you can see, it already has been terminated because of some error, and that is to be expected because we installed a new plugin, and Gatsby needs to be restarted when you do something like that. So okay, let's try this again. So Gatsby develop, and let's hope we don't get any errors. So as you can see, we got this error, failed to compile with one errors, and it says that we don't have this Gatsby image, which we are probably using somewhere here. I just don't know where exactly. Oh yeah, so it's using Gatsby image right here in the post.js. So let's install it. So npm install save Gatsby image. Okay, now that this is installed, let's try this again. So we are going to run Gatsby develop again. So now it says it's compiled successfully. There were some errors, but these are for the roots, so users, it can't access that because that's a route that is protected, so it can't access it. As you can see, we get unauthorized, and also here, and we got 404 not found for ACF. So I probably have ACF somewhere in there, or maybe because we set it to be true right here. I don't know, I'm not exactly sure, but I think this should work. So our Gatsby site is compiled, and if we go to localhost 8000, refresh this page, it works. Now let's see if our WordPress works, if it's getting data from WordPress. And to do that, you should just go right here, and if I go to pages, let's see, we have a sample page, and the slug of that sample page is sample-page. So let's go to our localhost 8000 and do sample page. And as you can see, it works, yes. So almost no errors. So as you can see, this works because it's getting the data from WordPress. And if you check out this page, it says this is an example page and so on. This is an example page. And even if I go right here and delete this whole first paragraph, save it, update it, and then refresh the page, the changes should be visible. Or maybe not. Okay, so they're not visible probably because you would need to run Gatsby again. So the thing with this is when you put this online, what you should be doing is have some hook present that is going to build up your site whenever someone presses update right here. And that's doable, you can do that. Maybe I will even show you that in this tutorial. But for now, this is good to know, so I didn't know this. As I said, I'm a beginner in this just like you are. So if you make a change right here, it won't be visible right away here. Let's just try my theory out. So I'm just going to run Gatsby develop again, and I would hope that now the changes that we made to this page will be visible once this is compiled. Okay, let's go to our sample page, refresh it, and now it is already actually refreshed. So hi there and so on. If we check out this, yeah, hi there and so on. Okay, that's great. So this works. Let's see if our post work. So let's see what's the slug of our post. If we go to posts, hello world. So this is the slug, and we access it by going to localhost 8000 posts, I think, hello world. Okay, nope. So we are getting 404. Maybe it's post. I think it's post. Nope, that doesn't work either. And let me just see right here. So as you can see, when we are creating in this Gatsby-node.js, when we are creating something, we need to define a route. So the route for the pages is just going to be this. So just slash and the slug of the page. But for posts, it should be also the same thing. Okay, so if I just do hello world. Now, yeah, this works. I don't want it to be like this, so I want it to be posts node slug. So we are doing that in Gatsby-node.js. So if I save this, let's see if it works right away. If I refresh this, of course not. We have to restart Gatsby. Let's restart it. And then I hope this should work. Okay, this has been refreshed, and as you can see, when we go to hello world right now, we are getting 404 page. But if we go to posts hello world, then we get hello world. Okay, now this works. So this is getting the data from our WordPress and it's spitting it out right here. So we are going to go to the sample page so I can explain this code to you. I will actually try to explain it. What I think this code is. So we are importing React, of course, we are importing component from React, and then we are extending component. And now right here we are getting our data. So we are getting site metadata and current pages data. And we are getting them actually down here using GraphQL. And then we are just returning our template. So we are creating a div. You need to have one root div in which you would put all of your code in. It's the same thing with Vue and it's the same thing with React. So you just put a div, span, whatever. You just need to have an element in which all of your other elements will go. And if I do something like this right here, right, div, then this will probably produce an error. If I save this, go right here, as you can see, this is now an error because we can't have two root elements. So we need to have just one. So if I save this, now that error is gone and we have compiled successfully. Okay, so now we have an h1 tag in which we are getting the title in. So this is our h1 tag and content is right here. Of course, you need to use this dangerously set inner HTML. That's a React thing and I'm not entirely sure what this is. When I read the documentation about it, it said something like that when you do this, it's just to remind you that this HTML is dangerously set and that you should look for that because you can maybe create some security holes when doing something like this, but that doesn't bother us so much because, as I said, this site is going to be built up into pure HTML, CSS and JavaScript, so no one would actually have access to our server or to our database or something like that, because these are just going to be static pages. Okay, so the meat of this is actually down here. So we are getting the data from down here. So we are calling GraphQL, we are querying current page query. I guess this is Gatsby's thing. And we are getting the ID of the page. So this is getting ID from the WordPress. And then we are setting up our data. So as you can see currently, I'm just going to delete this slug because I want to demonstrate something. Currently we are getting title, content and date, right? And for the site part of things, so site ID, we are getting the site's metadata and we set up that metadata in our Gatsby config.js. So the title would be WordPress Gatsby and subtitle fetch data from local web WP install. And we are just getting the title and subtitle. So what does GraphQL does right here? So if we check out our API, as you can see, this is the API for our page. Let me see. So this is the title. It says sample page. This is the content. it says content, and so on. So the great thing about GraphQL is in this. So as you can see, we are getting a lot of data from here. But in Gatsby, through GraphQL, we are just actually receiving the title, content, and the date. Nothing else. So not all of this right here. And we can prove that by just doing something like, so we set it up in a variable called current page. And this variable is using props data WordPress page. So we are getting WordPress page, right? This right here. And we can test that out if we just console log it. Current page. Okay, save this, go to our page, and right here, let me make this a bit bigger. Right here, we have an object with the title of sample page, with the content of some content, right? And with the date, March 3rd, 2018. So probably if we go right here and do something like p current page date. Now we get all sorts of errors, and I would guess that that is because this is not Vue.js and it's not used like that. So we probably need to do this set dangerously set inner HTML and do date. Okay, save this. Now it works. So now we get March 3rd, 2018. Great. So we are not getting all of that data from my API because most of this data we don't actually need. So these are most of these are just some WordPress things. So excerpts, author IDs, parents, menu orders, ping statuses, and so on. But let's say we want to have a slug right here. So sample page. So how would you do that? Well, you would just go right here and just say slug. So I also want to get the slug from my API. Save this. And now if we go to our page and check this out, you will see we have a title, content, date, and then you have a slug again. Okay, and we can of course probably print that slug out right here. And now we have sample page right here. Now the post.js file is pretty much the same as the page, except it has something like this right here, post template prop types, which I don't actually know what they do. So I'm just going to delete them for now. Save it. And if we go to posts, hello world, everything still works correctly. So probably this code will be needed for something else. I will try to find that out. Okay, one more thing I just want to mention. Of course, this is going to be available for you on GitHub. The link will be in the description below, so don't be afraid that I didn't write this all out. You will have the link below and you can just go to GitHub and copy the code that you need if you are following along with this tutorial. And as this tutorial has gotten pretty long by now, I think it's more than 30 minutes, we are going to stop here. So we created pages, we created posts, everything is working. So we are prepared to continue developing our WordPress Gatsby site. If you want to ask me questions, as I said, I don't know much about this, but if you want to ask them, you can use the Facebook, Twitter, the Instagram, YouTube, my site, GitHub to do that. So you can ask your questions there. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you like the channel and the content I put out, maybe subscribe to it. And if you want to send some money my way, you can use the Patreon page for that. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next episode.